So do you remember my very, very first overland trip? On the Georgia Traverse last November 2016. I haven't wore contacts since then. If you remember, that was pre-turtleback days. I remember I was trying to keep my hands clean. I was trying to wash them. I didn't have a sink, I didn't have soap. And I just kept looking down at my hands and my fingers and they were so dirty, and I'm not a germaphobe, I'm not a clean freak, but I couldn't put my contacts in and take them out when my hands were like constantly covered in dirt. So I took them out. I decided contacts and overlanding and camping don't mix, and I haven't worn them since. But lately my glasses have been driving me bananas, so I decided to put on contacts this morning. The problem is it's an older prescription because I never redid them when I redid my prescription. So I guess instead of my glasses driving me crazy today, my contacts will drive me crazy. I'll get that fixed. What's up all my swell, smiling friends? Jason Kirchie here with 4Runner Overland, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Today I'm going to be discussing sliders and why my sliders, the sliders I picked for my 5th gen 4Runner, I feel like are the best sliders out there for the 5th gen Toyota 4Runner. Once again, thank you all for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It shows us support, and I really, really appreciate that. Also, make sure you hit the like button. If you like what we're doing, hit the like button and share with your friends. Let them know if this is useful information. If it's something you find value in, let everybody know about it. So I had a couple of parameters. I had a couple of things that I was thinking about when I was getting my sliders. Obviously, I wanted the protection. I wanted the armor. I wanted the ability to be able to essentially support the entire body weight of the vehicle on one of the sliders. I guess it wouldn't really ever be the entire weight of the vehicle, but it should be tough enough so that if the weight of the vehicle on whatever side that is comes down on it, it shouldn't like bend and contort and smash into the side panel or whatever. The other thing that I really, really needed, and this is a little bit, I won't say unconventional, but not everybody's really looking for this when they're looking for a slider. But it needed to function adequately as a side step, primarily because this vehicle is a vehicle that my wife drives, my wife rides in. At the time when I was doing this, she was pregnant, which means it was even more difficult for her to get into the vehicle. As soon as I put the approximate 3-inch lift on there with the OME setup that I had, and then I added the bigger tires, I probably had about 4 inches of additional height, at least from entering the side, from the perspective of entering, into the doorway or whatever. But that was a problem with my wife because it literally went from being the favorite vehicle that I had ever owned of hers to, I don't want to take your vehicle, I don't want to drive it, I don't want to ride in it anymore because it's hard for me to get in and out of. So I needed something that would function sort of as a step. The funny thing is I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but after I added the sliders, she was like, these aren't really a step. You know that, right? They're not really a step. I mean, if you really want like a step, get some running boards, get some of those infab, get some of those, side step tubular thingamajiggers, but be warned, those are not suitable for doing semi-aggressive off-road activities. If you are in a situation where you've got a rock there on the side, you will tear those off, rip those off, damage them, like whatever. And really it could cause additional damage to your vehicle, the environment, to people around you. So just make sure you're aware of that and you're thinking about that whenever you're doing whatever you're doing. Our new Land Cruiser that we have has running board, side step thingamajiggers. Those will go someday depending on the type of terrain that we end up in. That's really never going to be like a Moab rock crawling adventure kind of vehicle. It's going to be more like a true overland vehicle in terms of going in off pavement areas. If there's technical terrain, we would try and avoid that with the Land Cruiser. There was a lot of options out there in terms of sliders. Firstly, let me back up a little bit and explain what a slider is. This was new to me whenever I was getting into this. A slider, and I think that this terminology probably comes from I think it's been around for a long time. I think it kind of comes from the rock crawling, the Jeep crowd, the people that are actually going in much more technical terrain where you really do need more advanced, sophisticated body armor, if you will. The goal behind the slider is to really protect that side you know, panel. I don't know, is that called the rocker panel? I don't know, but that panel there below the doors, that area, that space right there below the doors, knowing that sometimes you're going to come up over a rock or over a boulder or over something, and you may come down on that, and instead of cause damage to the vehicle, and actually could be, you know, severe damage that's difficult to repair, it would land on that part. It's basically under protection, and it should come out a little bit as well, so that you've got kind of like a good amount of protection. A lot of the traditional sliders that I've seen kind of actually do kind of almost kind of come up like that. I just said kind of like 30 times. But that's that's the idea behind it. It's to give you some protection there. There was a lot of options out there when I began looking for a slider that would work for us. Like I'd said a minute ago, obviously it needed to provide the protection. It needed to function as an adequate sidestep. There were very few options out there that did perform as an adequate sidestep. With the 4Runner, the other thing that was kind of interesting is I also wanted something that was going to be aesthetically pleasing to me. I don't want to throw any brands under the bus because it really wouldn't be fair to them. I'm sure they have a great product, but the tubular design, the tubular style of slider, that's fairly common, that's fairly popular. I don't personally like that. I don't think that that is a very good looking slider, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But that's a very common style, and I think that's following the more of the function instead of form rule there. It has a purpose, and it serves that purpose. For me, I wanted something that looked a little better. The funny thing is, and this is the ironic part, when I was searching for sliders, there's on t4r.org, there's several posts. There's probably a sticky, there's probably a comprehensive post. I'm pretty sure this is where I was at when I was looking, you know, and comparing sliders and different options. But basically the author of the post, he basically said the Slee sliders, which is what I have, it's a product from Slee, are the ugliest, most expensive, least functional sliders on the market. And when I looked at them, I was like, that's exactly what I want. And I'm used to spending a little bit more money for things than, I'm used to buying the more expensive product. That's what I should say, because it's been my experience, and this is not a carte blanche rule, but it's been my experience that oftentimes the more expensive product is a better product. But just because it's more expensive doesn't mean it's better. You need to do your homework. The other thing is that they talked about, and I don't remember the exact reasoning why they didn't think these would be functional, but I called Paul May with Equipped because I knew that he had been running the sliders on his 5th Gen 4Runner, and I just asked him what his experience was with them, how long he'd used them, has he really put them to the test, et cetera, et cetera. I felt, I mean, because Paul May is like, I think from what I understand, I don't know the guy very well, he's a very experienced overlander, significantly more experienced than me, surely. But he said he has been on many expedition trips. He has definitely pivoted the vehicle on them. He has definitely lifted from them. He has done all kinds of things from these sliders. He said they've never skipped a beat. And when I got them in, it was very obvious and very apparent that they were very tough, that they were very rigid, and I really should have no problem doing whatever I needed to do with these sliders. Okay, for starters, I don't know what, I'd have to go back and look at the post, because to me, I don't know what is to not love about the look of these sliders. There's not really a whole lot to them in terms of like looks to like or dislike. They're relatively simple. They're just basically giant pieces of steel that are well shaped, well formed, well welded. They really do kind of look like side steps when you look at them. And we're gonna take you underneath in a second so I can show you the actual structure. But in terms of the look, I think they look great. Okay, I think we've established that these sliders do look good, but let's talk about the structural integrity of them. I know of a few people that I was reading about in forum posts, and they were saying, yeah, they look all right, but the style and structure and the way they're engineered or whatever, I'd never want to trust the body weight of the vehicle with them. But you know, if you get under here and you look at these things, I don't know what you could do to them that would cause tons of damage. There's so many mounting points. They're so thick. They're steel too. They're 65 pounds a piece, and they were a real chore to install. It was the biggest pain in the butt install of anything that I'd ever done. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Actually, there's a couple of things. If you had an extra friend or two and you had the ability to actually lift it up off the ground quite a bit, the install would have been significantly easier. Okay, so in terms of mounting, you have the slider, and then you have these arms right here, and then some of these other parts I think bolted on. Let's see here. Okay, so there's like a little arm here that bolted on, but the rest of it went together. This did not bolt on. This and this part was all one piece, or well, it was welded together. It wasn't one piece, but it was one piece when I got it. And the same thing with this. So this and all of this was together. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 bolts from the slider to the frame of the vehicle. 14 bolts. So it's not just like 3 places it's mounting to the frame. It's mounted to the frame in 14 different places. And they're the big bolts, you know, that mount to the frame. You know what I mean? I am not a rock crawler. I don't really want to do that kind of stuff, like the really hardcore rock crawling kind of stuff. I have done some. I've played around in Moab. I've gone to a couple of off-road parks. For the most part, those types of shenanigans are mostly for my own personal experience, just so that should I be in a scenario where I am needing to traverse something more technical, I've got a little bit of experience to fall back on. I don't need anything super hardcore. I wanted something that would provide a basic level of protection. The Slee sliders have done that. I think that they would actually provide as much, if not more, protection than any of the other sliders out there on the market. I just am not qualified to give a very sound opinion on that. I will say this, the construction quality is second to none. The quality of the finish is amazing. I don't know if it's painted or powder coated. I think it's powder coated, but it's like I have scraped it, I have dented it, I've scratched them. The finish looks amazing. It works really well. It functions very, very well as a step. I feel like it looks really good. The finish is held up. It's been very tough. It's been very rigid. I have had to pivot it and kind of like be on some rocks and stuff like that. Got a couple scars to show. I have jacked off of them several times with my high lift jack, and they have performed very, very well there. I have nothing bad to say about these. I've got nothing but good things to say, and they're not paying me to say any of this, by the way. I paid full retail price for these. That's my opinion. That's my experience on the Slee sliders. In my opinion, they are the best slider option out there. I have relationships with a couple of companies out there. You guys make great products, but these are my favorite. And I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was useful to you. If you have any questions for me regarding these sliders, anything that I didn't cover, let me know in comments below, and we will see you in the next time.